Wenn man ein Land erobert, kann man nicht erwarten, dass die Leute freundlich sind. Aber die Norweger waren freundlich zu uns.
When you go to invade a country, you cannot expect the people to be friendly. But the Norwegians were friendly to us. Of course, they had seen what the German army did in Poland. And they were also scared.
In 1940, Rudi Tupfer was a lieutenant in the German Navy. He took part in the invasion of Norway. Today, he is an engineer for an aircraft company and lives in Los Angeles with his wife and daughter. In 1940, Barclay Grant was a captain in the British Royal Marines. He too fought in Norway. Today, he lives in retirement with his wife in Sussex, England.
Some of the local Norwegian inhabitants weren't frightfully reliable. There were a lot of fifth columnists, or quislings as we call them. They were a perfect nuisance with their phony telephone calls and their cutting of our communication cables.
In the battle for Norway, the lives of Rudi Tupfer and Barclay Grant came together for a brief moment. Two fighting men, one German, one British, relived that moment in history. I'm Jim Bishop. In early 1940, Norway has a unique place in the calculations of both Germany and Britain. Germany's furnaces are dependent upon Swedish iron ore shipped through the Norwegian port of Narvik. The British would like to cut Hitler's supply line, but Norway is neutral. The fear that Britain will move into Norway draws Hitler's attention to the north. February 16th, 1940. The German prison ship Altmark has sought safety in neutral waters from prowling British destroyers. On board, locked in storerooms and oil storage tanks, are 300 imprisoned British sailors, survivors of ships sunk by the notorious German pocket battleship Graf Spee. On the night of February 16th, the British destroyer Cossack enters the fjord and frees all prisoners. The death of 7 German seamen is caused by this British action. Hitler, alarmed by British boldness and rumors of their designs on Norway, schedules an invasion of Norway for April 9th. The German plan is to simultaneously occupy ports a 1,000-mile stretch of Norwegian coastline. Oslo in the south, Trondheim in the middle, and Narvik in the north. It is the first combined land, sea, and air operation in history. Hitler's fears of British intentions are not unfounded. In late March, Britain starts secret preparations for military operations against Norway. Under Operation Wilfred, mines are to be laid in neutral Norwegian waters to cut the German supply line. Second, a force codenamed R4 is made ready to invade and occupy strategic Norwegian ports in case the Germans should interfere with the mine laying. The mines are to be laid on April 8th. By coincidence, 1 day earlier than the scheduled German invasion. At the same time, from northern German seaports, troops begin to depart. On April 6th at Bremerhaven, in the invasion group assigned to Narvik, and aboard the destroyer Erich Gysi, is a 21-year-old graduate of the German Naval Academy, Lieutenant Rudi Tupfer.
Wir wissen nicht, wo es hingeht. Es ist ein Geheimnis.
We arrived at our destroyer this morning, and now trains come with mountaineers, and we are told to take 300 men aboard our destroyer. We do not know what it is all about until we are a day at sea. Then we are told. Our spies have information that the English are going to occupy Norway. They want Narvik to get steel, and the rest of Norway too, because that is the only way the British keep our navy from getting to the Atlantic. Whoever has Norway has a big advantage to win the war. We are supposed to disembark our troops at Narvik and then go right back to Germany because we know the English will be on our heels.
At the British Admiralty, reports begin to mount indicating a large German fleet moving toward Norway. The order goes out: seek out the German fleet and bring it to battle. German ability to decode messages of British naval movements enable them to avoid their pursuers. Every effort to stop the German invasion fails. Along the fjord leading to Oslo, outdated forts are quickly silenced by naval and air bombardment. At Oslo, the Fornebu airfield is taken at 8 a.m. By noon, 1,500 German troops with a brass band are marching through the streets of the capital city. At Trondheim, the ancient Norwegian capital, 2 old forts protecting the entrance to the harbor are quickly occupied. At 7 a.m., German troops have control of the city. Early morning, April 9th. 2 German destroyer flotillas enter the Vestafjord approach to Narvik. 2 Norwegian ships are ordered to surrender. Their reply: we will fight.
They start to fire and maneuver their ships. They are very clever with their ships. They go back and forth, avoiding our torpedoes, but we finally hit them. In the afternoon, we discharge our troops and equipment without any trouble. The Norwegian commander knows resistance is useless. He only has troops in training. They are very surprised, and a couple of thousand surrender to us without any hostilities.
In one day, in a single swoop, the Germans have taken all their objectives. Norwegian resistance is sabotaged by 5th columnists. Communications between units are disrupted and all countermeasures against the enemy fail. Former Defense Minister Quisling is responsible for the sellout of his countrymen, and the name of Quisling becomes a new word for traitor. April 11th. With the German occupation already 2 days old, the British invasion force finally sets out for Norway. It will land at 2 places: Trondheim in central Norway and Narvik in the north. In the British landing forces of R4 is a 31-year-old Royal Marine, Captain Barclay Grant.
We are at Scapa Naval Base when we got word to go to Glasgow with the utmost dispatch and store up. We don't know what it is for, but I think we are going to Norway from the nature of the equipment they are giving us. We are getting fleece-lined leather jerkins, woolly hats, gloves, and Wellington boots. Our ship is an old half-liner, half-cargo. She's from the British Indian Line, and I imagine she's something like 18,000 tons. We use the line apart for our floating barracks and carry our guns and other equipment around in the holds. Nobody's looking at sea for submarines. We are looking in the air for planes, because that is more on our minds than anything else.
April 13th, 1940. A strike force of the British Royal Navy heads into the German-held Norwegian port of Narvik. 12:38 p.m. April 13th. A powerful British task force makes the final approach to Narvik.
The English never attack unless they are sure they are strong enough to win. They have a big fleet and excellent crews, difficult to match. The harbor is so crowded that we cannot fight in our operational order. We keep going back and forth in the fjords. Their cruisers stay far away, so we cannot reach them with our guns, though they easily hit us and then send their destroyers to finish us off. My destroyer is hit so badly that we have to abandon it. We have to swim through warm oil from the destroyer, which makes me feel very sticky. As I am swimming, I see rafts taken prisoner by the English. It seems like it takes hours before I get to the shore.
The naval battle is a resounding British success. All 10 German destroyers in Narvik Harbor are sunk. However, the British do not risk a landing against the well-entrenched German troops on shore. Instead, the invasion force moves north 50 miles to Harstead to establish a base.
Equipment ashore is slightly muddled, probably because it is the first serious operation we have taken in the war. But there aren't really any major problems, so we just try to get on with the job and keep out of the eyes of the enemy.
German reinforcements are rushed into southern Norway, while British troops land unopposed at Harstad and outside Trondheim. April 18th, the German 196th Division pushes off from Oslo, driving north to link up with forces holding Trondheim. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Norwegian troops are unable to halt the German advance. Although the rugged Norwegian country slows the German advance, Luftwaffe support and superior artillery give the Germans the upper hand. Within 5 days, the link in the German chain connecting Oslo and Trondheim is complete. All of central and southern Norway is now in German hands.
Pretty good mood here. Obviously, you don't find Germans as bad as you expected them, do you?
Oh, no, certainly not.
No.
I was captured at Forberg by the Germans. From there, I came to Littlehammer. And we had a supper. Consisted of brown bread, gorgonzola, wine, which the Germans gave to us, cigarettes. We had a hot meal each day. And getting on fairly decent. And I hope the war will soon be over and we'll all be going back home.
It's a long, long way to Tipperary.
May 27th, with Polish, Canadian, and crack French mountaineer troops, the Allies moved by sea for a direct assault on Narvik. This time to take it.
To take Narvik from the rear is impossible because of the mountains. We don't even bother to put up a defense line from that direction. Our mountaineers always choose the higher positions, so they will be above when the enemy approaches. The whole population has left Narvik because of the British shelling the town. They all went to their ski huts in the mountains. They know we won't give up easily. Whatever the English want, they will have to get by fighting their way through.
About a half a dozen landing craft. I think the only ones yet in existence. And very valuable. We try not to keep them all together, so if you lose one, you won't lose the whole lot. The Germans have the high ground behind Narvik, which is quite a good position from which to drop shells on our landing craft.
The German troops, with no naval protection, far from Luftwaffe bases, outnumbered 4-1, retreat into the mountains behind Narvik. But Narvik is a hollow prize. Orders issued prior to the attack but kept secret from the troops until now call for an immediate evacuation. The reason? Allied armies have been falling back in France and the Dunkirk crisis is looming.
The evacuation is a very depressing thing. Very depressing indeed. In fact, although I realize we are having a sticky and expensive time, it is a great shock. The Luftwaffe comes at all times of the day. The unfortunate part is that it is daylight for nearly 24 hours. We expect an alarm any time.
Only one objective remains in Norway: the destruction of Narvik's port facilities. For 5 days, the evacuation is carried out. By June 8th, all 25,000 Allied troops are aboard the transports and on their way to England. In a moment, the conclusion of our story. After Barclay Grant's evacuation to England, he later fights at Singapore, Sicily, Italy, and will go ashore on D-Day at Normandy. Rudy Tepfer spends 2 more months in Norway, returns to Germany, and is assigned to submarine duty. Late in the war, he is transferred to the German Army and fights on the Eastern Front. 2 days after the Allied evacuation, Norway capitulates to Germany. With the sudden and decisive German victories in France, Norway became a lost cause.
War I always hated. My father died in the First Great War in France. When I was called to military duty, I thought of becoming a conscientious objector. But in Hitler's Germany, such a thing was not possible.
Rainer Geiselhardt was a mechanic in Dresden prior to being drafted by the Wehrmacht in 1940. Today he lives in Montreal, Canada, where he operates a garage and gas station. Edward Barrault was a regular in the United States Army when World War II began. Later he went on to serve as a combat infantryman in the European theater. He lives today in retirement in Anaheim, California.
The old-timers in our outfit were a pretty smart bunch and had it all figured out. Our division, the 45th, had made the landings in Sicily, Salerno, and Anzio, and we sure were a cinch to go in at southern France.
During the summer of 1944, the international playground known as the Riviera was turned into a battleground. There, Rainer Geiselhardt and Edward Barrault were forced to face each other. Now, two fighting men, one German, one American, relive that moment in history. By August 1944, the Allies have consolidated their Normandy beachhead. Now they turn east to hit the German defense positions prior to launching a drive to the German border. The further the Allies drive into France, the more vulnerable is their right flank to a counterattack. To protect it, a secondary offensive is ordered, the invasion of southern France. The plan is to land Allied troops east of Marseille and Toulon on the Mediterranean coast, to open a new beachhead on the fabulous French Riviera. The landing beaches and their approaches are charted to perfection, and the deployment of enemy troops is no secret. The Maquis, the French resistance forces, report every movement. Three American and two French divisions are withdrawn from the Italian fighting to become the nucleus of the invasion force. They are formed into the 7th Army under Lieutenant General Alexander Patch. To minimize inter-service rivalry such as occurred in the Salerno landings, the entire assault command, sea, land, and air, establishes headquarters aboard one ship, the USS Catoctin. August 12th. The last of the assault troops clamber aboard waiting ships. Most of the U.S. elements assemble in the Bay of Naples. With the 45th Infantry Division as a section leader of a heavy weapons platoon, Sergeant Edward Barrault from Orange, New Jersey.
I'm feeling real gung-ho. It's my first beachhead, and I'm eager to show that I'm a real sergeant, not a candy bar or a cracker jack. So I pump the other sergeants with questions and get clued in. It helps, though I still have to bluff my way around and let the guys know I'm boss. But I've got to be sure I'm right before I tell them anything. My platoon leader and I are the only Easterners in the outfit. They call me a city slicker and say I talk too fast. One of the guys is always whittling on a hunk of wood and saying to me, "Slow down, Sarge." They're real fine boys, but I always have to repeat myself.
The Germans await the landings. General Oberst Johannes Blachowicz, commanding the 1st and 19th Armies, stations 30,000 troops in the assault zone. Their orders to hold the invaders for a few days until the Allies have tipped off their main landing area. Then 200,000 more German troops will counterattack. But one important ingredient is missing: air power. Germans have barely 100 planes within range of the beaches. With furious fighting raging in northern France, they can expect no more. As Wehrmacht combat troops are deployed throughout key defense sectors, various support units are alerted to move to southern France. With an automotive repair and maintenance battalion is a mechanic from Dresden. Corporal Rainer Geiselhardt.
I have been on duty here at the Sacred Ordnance Center in the south of Bavaria. My duty is not so important. It is more like a job. Mostly I do mechanical repairs. The work is easy. But in truth, I do not like it here. I do not like what I see. All with the same purpose, to find more deadly ways to kill. Suddenly our battalion is ordered to prepare to move to France. The news reports tell us nothing of what is happening there. However, there is no hiding the fact that the fighting is going against us. I had hoped to go home on leave to see my wife and son. Now, that is out of the question. We have reached France, but we are now heading south, not to the Western Front. I have never been outside Germany before. What I am seeing of the world is much the way I imagine it to be. The fields, the farms, the villages. They are not too different from those at home. Then we pass a small memorial to soldiers who died in the First World War. I cannot help but think of my poor father. He did not want to die, and I do not want to die.
There is no hope of surprising the enemy, but efforts are made to keep the exact landing sector a secret. Bombers of the Mediterranean Allied Air Forces visit equal destruction on 4 selected stretches of coastline. Only one of them is the intended assault area. August 14th, D-Day -1. The main convoys pass between the islands of Corsica and Sardinia. At dusk, the ships change course and head for their destination, Toulon and Cannes.
The chaplains call separate meetings of the different religious faiths. We know that once again we're committed to battle. It's at a time like this that some of us make a pact with God. Just let me live through this and I'll be a better man. I'll change my ways and be a better man. You can't help thinking of all the things you've done in the past that were wrong. And if you get through this thing alive, you want to rectify them.
August 15th, D-Day. Minesweepers move into cleared channels for landing craft. Small commando groups on each flank set out for shore. 400 transport planes carrying over 5,000 paratroopers are winging over the Mediterranean. Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France, is on. August 15th, 1944, the beautiful Côte d'Azur, the French Riviera, is under attack by the invading Allies. 9 miles inland, 5,000 paratroopers of the 1st Airborne Division make an unopposed drop near the town of Lumey, where they are reinforced by hundreds of glider-borne soldiers. Their presence behind the German batteries creates havoc among the defenders. French commandos land on the left flank, east of Cap Negre, wipe out a coastal battery and block the road to Toulon. A perfect operation.
For the first time, a report is given that the Allies have made strong attacks along the Côte d'Azur, and landings are being attempted. Our battalion is ordered to establish a repair depot in support of the Hermann Göring Panzer Division. These tanks have been rushed here from the Italian front to stop the Allies. The tank men are bitter. They have no reserve units and very few spare tanks. To fight on these terms is suicide.
While the naval barrage softens up the enemy on the beach, we just wait and sweat in full gear, ready to move. We rendezvous for hours. Finally, we head for the beach.
8 a.m. On the left, the 3rd Division. In the center, the 45th. On the right, the 36th. The first message received by the command ship: landings on time. Opposition light.
I've got 17 men, and I've got to get them off the landing craft onto the beach as quick as possible. There's fire coming at us, but it's not as bad as we expected. In fact, we're happy that we're not getting it yet. We make the beach, and it's a snap. Our heavy stuff just rolls off onto the beach behind us. Boy, this is nothing compared to any of the other landings that the 45th has made.
In the early stages, it is a battle of isolated actions. Until the pieces fall into place, 7th Army Headquarters does not know how it stands. It does not even know that the paratroopers have, by sheer chance, dropped astride the headquarters of the German Corps guarding the assault beaches, taking several hundred prisoners, including the Corps commander. The 45th Division captures the German signal center for the South Coast. The German defenders are thus deprived of top leadership and communications at the critical moment. The pieces couldn't have fallen together more luckily.
We've got two 30 caliber water-cooled machine guns, which pack plenty of firepower. When we're committed, we dig in and surround ourselves with riflemen. But our riflemen don't like this, because the enemy is trying to knock us out with mortar and artillery. But when the going gets really tough, they'll be more than happy to have a machine gunner around.
The 6th Corps under Lieutenant General Lucien Truscott quickly sweeps over the 2 German divisions facing the assault beaches. German morale on the continent finally appears to be cracking. Over 2,000 Germans surrender. The next day, even more.
It looks like a whole German division is coming down the road at us. It is. And they surrender even though they greatly outnumber us. They don't look like supermen to me. They've had it.
The collapse of the beachhead defenses comes too fast for General Blachowicz to rush in reserves. And now he finds, with all the bridges down over the Rhone, his troops are divided into 2 uncoordinated forces, east and west of that river.
What is happening on the southern front is no secret. The Americans are advancing quickly. But we have our own voice here. The Maquis attack us with every opportunity. Many of us have not fired a rifle in years. Now we must become expert or die. No matter how often we move or hide, our positions are made known to the Americans by the Maquis. A day does not pass without bombers coming over us. Half of our unit is already lost. Under these conditions, the rest of us cannot hope to last long.
The Germans have no plan of retreat. The Allies have no plan of advance. Improvising, General Truscott determines to cut off the Germans, orders his columns northwest to the Rhone River.
Our objective is to proceed north and wipe out enemy pockets. That's all. We go 4 or 5 miles and nothing. No resistance. And then we spot a small holding force and dig in. I guess the Germans are leaving just enough behind to keep us from quite catching up with them. This type of fighting is easy so far. We call it the Champagne Campaign. We come into a town expecting to find Germans, but French resistant fighters have already taken over, giving their special treatment to women collaborators. This is the first time we see such a spectacle. Our chaplain is really burned up about it and raises a big stink because he feels it's indecent in front of the troops.
The best German escape route is through a narrow gap north of the town of Montélimar. A 1,000-foot high ridge overlooks the pass. Truscott determines to take the ridge before the Germans get there. The first troops to reach the Montélimar area on August 21st attacked the town instead of the all-important ridge. Thousands of Germans squeaked through the gap. But the battle around Montélimar continues for 7 days, with the Germans getting much the worst of it.
Attack seemed like the end of the war. The bombs came like a wild herd without pity. They killed 3 men next to me, then went on to kill others, even women and children, in the village. How I survived, I shall never know. Our vehicles now mean more to us than guns. By keeping them in good repair, we have a chance to escape. I treat my engine like a movement in an expensive watch.
Meanwhile, other American troops have encircled Toulon while the French Maquis come out into the open to battle the Germans in Marseille. August 23rd, the Maquis control the great city of Marseille. It's a time for tears, tears of joy and sorrow. The townsmen know that the tide has finally turned. September 11th. Both American and French columns now harry the Germans as they race toward the German border. Patrols of the 7th Army and General Patton's 3rd Army make contact near the town of Châtillon, and the Allies regroup for the invasion of Germany.
Today we crossed back into Germany. Somehow everything seems safer here. But I know the war will follow us right to our doorsteps. I try not to think about it. I only want days, years and years of killing and dying to end. There's a church, but I have no desire to worship. I feel that men truly do not believe in God's word. If murder such as today's can happen, I am not a child. I know it will happen again, but somewhere, sometime, it must end.
In southern France, the Germans have suffered a humiliating defeat. Some die for what they believe, but more of them, upward of 100,000, surrender. At long last, the German is quitting. In December 1945, Rainer Geiselhardt returns to Dresden. There he finds his home destroyed from bombing and his wife and son dead. In 1947, he emigrates to Canada. In the closing months of the war, Edward Barrault is severely wounded while fighting inside Germany. After his recovery in 1946, he re-enlists and serves with the Army of Occupation in Germany before going into retirement. Some military critics contend that Operation Dragoon was unnecessary. Yet, it cost the Allies few casualties, while the retreating Germans suffered great carnage. It triggered the enemy to surrendering in wholesale lots for the first time on the Western Front.